Hello, viewers of the YouTubes, and welcome to the first voyage of the Medal of Honor into the HD Renaissance, as this was the first of the World War II veterans to get onto the PS2 era. EA certainly made the most out of it back in the day with properly rendered and detailed gun battles, war gimmicks, and the comparatively luscious backgrounds with bits and bobs that were only realized with blocky texture maps back in the old Underground days. This was the next level leap that the series needed to do to show that it still had what it takes to be a contender on the mainstay stage. After going over the footage for this game and doing a little bit of the old review process, there's a lot that's done in a game literally titled Frontline, with the protagonist going from locale to locale, from theater to theater, from Normandy to France to the German countryside and rail network to get some jobs done that only he and he alone can manage because, well, that's just how the game genre works. Like Allied Assault, it really is an odyssey into the notable battles and base busters of the European World War II theater, just like what you'd want if you were at all interested in this game or this genre. At least Medal of Honor goes into a little further detail and more realism than what you would come later in Call of Duty, which could get a little bit more ridiculous at times, where Medal of Honor just wants to entertain with a history revisit. A virtual museum more than a high-energy romp through, I don't know, blowing up trucks on the side of a mountain. After going through the footage on the first period of the review, I started feeling my heart drop pretty hard after looking over the first couple hours of the game. Honestly, I thought that this video was going to be a simple 5-minute, 500-word, one-pager where I was essentially just going to say that Frontline looks pretty and is able to add in a lot more production value by being a PS2 tentpole. It's almost literally the same game as Allied Assault, with all the same locales, missions, guns, and people to shoot simply rearranged in a very familiar pattern. Something that just takes up space rather than adding anything new to anybody's life. From the first third, Frontline looks exactly like any other cookie-cutter World War II game that plays the same set list that came before and definitely after this game. It looked like Medal of Honor lost its momentum and would just become another name in a very dull list of quote-unquote creative types. And then surprisingly, it got better. It started introducing things like the motorcycle minigun section, a tank battle, and the thing that defined Underground as a standout, and that would be its behind-the-scenes mission where you'd have to get into a disguise, walk the fine line, and sort out your fake documents under threat of being immediately arrested and probably shot in 5 seconds by a Luger. The classic PSX stealth sections got a noticeable upgrade as well, since on top of waving your papers around in every Nazi's face, you also get to run around and steal photos of their top secret plans for their definitely real WMDs, stealing additional passes from higher up desks, and then sneaking out the back door whenever you get the chance. The inclusion of anything out of the ordinary is nice to see, as World War II games as a genre can easily get bogged down into dancing the same old jig that we've seen from years before, just with the names filed down, and everyone throwing on different jerseys, and that's because developers are honestly probably just like normal people when it comes to history. They don't spend the time to dig deep and get to know the interesting undertones, young-sung moments from that period of time that they could tap into as new inspiration. They moreover seem to go towards the popular, which is why we've seen enough different interpretations of the Normandy landing to fill a goddamn TV tropes page. It gets to a point where the genre is more defined by its repetition rather than its exploration of a broad and intricate web of historical events. Unfortunately, the other major loss from developers is that all too ready to be abandoned pillar of characterization. World War II shooters, and honestly shooters in general, have a problem with integrating any sort of meaningful personalities into their genre games. This trend gives us franchises littered with characters that act nothing more than signposts pointing us in directions of objectives and nothing else. Most of the time, these people aren't even helping in the gun battle. They are occurring right outside the truck/tank/boat, whatever the hell they're on, and without any noticeable noteworthy characteristics to thread the campaign through, then it's quickly forgotten as just another set of the same set pieces that you've already been through 5 separate times beforehand, or 15 times, or 50 times, I don't know who you are. Adding a cast of people who have actual roles and shock, maybe even a character arc, can truly revolutionize a game in the genre since it so rarely happens with actual conviction. It could take a historical set piece like the Normandy landing that has been such a tropey dead horse and turn it around into the harrowing meat grinder that it should be known as, since it was such a cruel battle before Market Garden even happened. Adding in some drama, some internal conflict, a person that fights and might die around you is something that can easily be unique, and with some effort put in, since while it is just a ubiquitous arc during war, you can add some details, you can hand out some backstories, put in some elements in conversation to create a character to work with. And even though he might die the same way as thousands of other people, at least then they could die as the character Steve that's been with you through the last 3 tours of your war record, instead of random number generator number AB7 who was included in a singular mission where his only destiny was to die in the dirt to serve as glorified wallpaper for the level itself. In the spirit of being fair, Frontline does have an antagonist ready to go. Well, for a level we're pitted up against Han's official, just some guy in full regalia to yell at us about wasting the Americana in the final mission. And yes, the bar is so low for plotting in your World War II shooter genre that this is actually something to mention, that they put in a voiced villain in the game at any point. Frontline does build up the gameplay as well, since at the beginning of the video we were doing some very generic mission type of stuff that we could find in any other game in the genre, including the Normandy landing, and then things start to develop into the turret section and stealth game mission to differentiate the first and second halves, up to the point where we're infiltrating a nuclear/rocket engineering facility, and then finishing up with destroying a secret Air Force base, since the Nazi war machine has been experimenting with jet fighters. A thing that probably was happening at the time, and then leaving the game, stealing one of the remaining jets amidst a conga line of explosions and Panzerfaust attempts. For what started out as a game that looked like every other imitator in the pack on the PS2, Frontline did try pushing the boat out in a way that Allied Assault could only dream of a couple of years earlier. It introduced a little bit of characterization with our missions, finally accompanying some voiced comrades to tell us where to go and what to do. Again, something that isn't out of the ordinary, since these characters act more as objective arrows rather than human beings, but I'm willing to give this game the benefit of the doubt and say that this is a start for the franchise developing into something that will actually be interesting later on. We have some actual people in Medal of Honor now, woo! But the gameplay makes up for it by returning to the underground form and putting in some stealth and light puzzle sections for our agent to act surreptitiously by, stealing documents and secret plans, and then moving on to some higher stakes missions, such as blowing up yet another submarine, weapons facility, and the final showdown at the jet fighter base where we fly off in literally explosive fashion. The game also fixed Allied Assault's obsession with nonsensical difficulty and stacked deck missions, and that time spent hammering out the difficulty curve and finessing the gameplay into something that hits closer to the standard control scheme of the nowadays, makes Frontline an enjoyable time. A game that lifts itself a little bit out of the pack to stand out as your average World War II shooter. Is Frontline the best game ever? No, definitely not. There are better shooters in the grand scheme of things. But if you're in the mood for a more realistic shooter and have a retro bone in your body, then it's certainly worth checking out for a weekend kick. It's a classic case of your World War II health bar based shooter. It's a complete throwback. It'll give you a straightforward 7-hour campaign full of what you want to see and feel like the American hero, along with putting evil people in those places to shoot in the face with the fun guns that we all remember from the good old days. Frontline's a good game to pass the time, and a sign that maybe the franchise got back on its feet after EA pummeled it in the head with an uncaring sledgehammer and forced it to caper for fake gold coins for its unfeeling and hostile master. We already know it's a bleak ending for the series, but maybe there's some good to be found in it before it all went to shit. I guess we'll see next time when we delve into the rest of Allied Assault. Thanks for watching, and I'll wish you all out there a victory for gamers. Have a good night.